Hi, this is Jennifer Yen with Hello Nerdeek, and we are here today with the best-selling author of the Magicians trilogy, Lev Grossman. Hi, and welcome to Houston and Comicpalooza.
Thank you so much.
Well, we wanted to have a chance to sit with you and just ask you questions that we know are probably burning in the minds of our fans, and give them a chance to see you face to face and to chat with you for a few minutes. So, thank you so much for your time.
Great.
So let's start with something really straightforward. Going to season 2 finale, we knew that we had just gotten a renewal for sci-fi for season 3.
Right.
Did you feel really excited about that? Was there any doubt?
Yeah. Yes, and sort of. I certainly was super excited about it. I love the show. I love making the show. It's just like a super big adventure. There was something weird happened with the renewal where it came late. They renewed The Expanse, and I was like, when I watch I look at The Expanse and think, okay, we're like siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Mommy and Daddy love The Expanse. When are they going to renew us? It was like a month before the renewal came down. Some weird negotiation must have been happening, but on a level of power that like is way above the one where I exist.
Right. Well, we're still glad to hear that there's a season 3. We're very, very excited, especially after that season finale.
Yeah.
Quite shocking.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously you probably know where it's going, but the rest of us don't. So
I know a certain amount about where it's going. I have seen the season 3 document, which is a document of about 10 pages of like densely written notes about what's going to happen. So I know some things.
Are we in for some good surprises?
Yeah, I am always. I mean, as the show departs significantly from the books, to the extent that I am often very surprised by revelations on the show, and that continues to be the case with season 3.
Oh, very exciting! We're going to definitely be tuning in. Well, so leading into that, one of the things that we know a lot of authors often dream of is seeing their stories come to life on the big or small screen. Was there anything in particular that you were pretty firm about that they could not change, or that you really wanted to make sure was well represented?
Yeah. Yeah. There were a few different things. I mean, one of the points of The Magicians, if it has a point, is that when I was in high school, I was obsessed because I'm super old. I was obsessed with Watchmen. I read Watchmen in high school, and the way that it kind of went at the superhero genre and just sort of tipped over some sacred cows in this way that made it feel super real. I always wanted that for The Magicians. I always wanted The Magicians to be like that, and there's a tendency on TV for networks to push for things to be more conventional. And I was really hoping that those unconventional aspects of The Magicians would stay in place. And I think they largely have. Things I was keeping an eye on were I wanted people to swear. I didn't feel like there was enough swearing in fantasy. Check. They are so foul-mouthed on the show. It's worse than the books. So that was something. What else? I wanted Elliot to be. I don't know what Elliot's sexuality is, but he's not straight. He's something more complicated than that. No one ever says he's gay, but he's just his sexuality is much broader and more fluid than that. I worried they would make him straight, and they didn't do that. And in fact, there are more gay characters on the show than there were in the books. So that was big for me. I didn't want Quentin to be a conventional hero. I really wanted them to pursue this idea and stick with this idea, which is kind of hard to work out because storytelling tends to cut the other way. This idea that Quentin he's not a chosen one. He's not marked out by fate or destiny for some great heroic role. Stories want to go in that direction. That's how that conventional architecture of stories go. So I wanted to make sure that that theme was part of it. And by the end of the first season, I think you can really see that they really embraced that.
Was there anything that John and Sarah did that you were really excited about?
Yeah, a lot of things. They did some things with Julia that I thought was really exciting. Julia was a character that I didn't really focus on until the second book. I didn't really figure her out and get her story straight. Because they have the benefit in the second book to work with, they simply ran Julia and Quentin's stories side by side, which chronologically is how they work. I really was happy about that. I was really happy to see that. I was glad they didn't wait. They just went straight at that story. The cast of the magicians is super diverse, much more diverse than the books. I always felt that was a failing of the books, and I was really happy to see the show cast a lot of people who aren't white. That was a good thing. I was excited about that. John and Sarah are extremely funny. They're funnier than me, and so some of the lines that they just some of the stuff they come up with, some of the places they push the characters to, places I never got, and I always just have a great sort of frisson of excitement whenever I see that.
Wonderful. Well, speaking of Quentin, one of the things that really sets your story apart from many of the others that we hear is the fact that you've got a main character that has really crippling depression and a lot of anxiety. And that's not something you commonly see in a main character, or they kind of brush it underneath the bed. Was this something that was a conscious decision on your part?
Yeah, it was definitely an unconscious decision. It was it only dawned on me consciously kind of midway through the writing. But depression is something that I struggle with a lot. At first I started writing Quentin, and it was just like, oh, he's an ordinary guy. And halfway through the writing, I was like, no, actually, he's super depressed. That's because I'm super depressed. I just think that's normal. This is, these things that you figure out gradually. I feel like a lot of fantasy is about depression. A lot of fantasy is about living in a world that you feel like it's disenchanted, or you feel like it's disconnected from you. Either because that's actually what's in the book, or because it's about enchanted worlds. It's about worlds that have some, organic connection to life and some force that's greater than you. And it soothes that sense that it's missing in the real world. I was really happy, because so much of fantasy, I think, is about depression. I was really happy to have a depressed character in there working specifically on those problems. That was important to me, and it's something I hear back about a lot in a good way.
Okay. Was there one particular fan response that really stuck with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost I got a letter once from a woman whose sister had died. She killed herself, and she'd left behind a copy of The Magicians with some notes in it. I don't want to get too much further than that, but it's the kind of story that you never ever forget. It was a powerful moment. Often I hear about from people who say, I gave this to my spouse or girlfriend or parent as a way to help them understand how I feel. And those stories always stay with me.
Well, it's wonderful to have a book that touches people in the way that The Magicians really has.
There isn't much more important than that.
Well, let's talk about a little bit something more fun.
Yeah.
We know that you've created this wonderfully rich environment and universe in your books. Is there an author that you would love to be able to visit their world?
Yeah, definitely. Most of them, I would say. But the answer is quite boring. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Watchmen. I don't want to go to the Watchmen verse. I'm often drawn to dark and gritty worlds where I would never set foot, and if I did, I would survive for about 11 seconds. Where do I want to go? I want to go to Narnia. I think that I would enjoy myself richly in Narnia. I think that I would have a very good time as a kind of visiting adjunct at Hogwarts. I think that would be, that would be a good role for me.
Oh, which topic would you be teaching? Which subject?
Oh, I think charms always kind of drew me. Illusions. Yeah, nothing, not the really hardcore stuff, But I think I could have a lot of fun with that stuff.
Well, wonderful. Well, we know that you started out as a journalist before you transitioned into writing novels. And I just heard that you just recently actually quit your full-time job.
It's true.
What was, or has been over this past transition, the best advice and the worst advice you've gotten
as a writer?
Mm-hmm.
I think write every day is one of the worst. Every writer starting out, unless they have a trust fund, is working and or taking care of children. And when someone tells you to write every day, for me, I look back at them and just say, "What, are you kidding? Do you remember? Have you ever had a job? Do you remember what that was like? If I miss a day, I'm not going to feel bad about it. I always want to write whenever I have a chance. I'm going to write, and if I miss a day, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. It's a pet peeve of mine, that particular advice. And my brother had a writing teacher who told him something that he passed on to me, which was, this is coming in the favorites department, which was, the great thing about writing is you only have to play to your strengths. You only do the things you do well, and then leave the other stuff out. If you're working on a scene and it's death and you're grinding and your fingers have gone numb, you have no idea what's happening, often it's something skippable. Summarize it and move on to the thing where you really feel like you know where you are and what you're doing. I have often give myself permission to stop and say, wait, I'm bad at this. I love it when other people do it. I can't do it. And I'm gonna move on to something that I can do that actually works.
Wonderful. Well, we also know that you probably had quite a few great interviews in your journalistic past. Was there one that was just such a great standout or your favorite?
Probably the best interview I ever did was J.K. Rowling. It did not result in my writing a great piece about that interview. My piece about J.K. Rowling is so bad that it's famous for being bad. It's, but the actual interview was so good. She was so good. I felt so good talking to her. The interview I enjoyed the most, probably the interview where the person said the smartest things. That's the one that leaps out of me.
Well, I think we'd all love an interview with J.K. Rowling if we had a chance.
I know I did.
So that must have been quite the pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, I know that a lot of our fans are probably wondering, of all the characters you created in The Magicians, is there one that you feel like you're the most like?
Yeah. I'm the most like Julia. That was something I knew while I was writing. There was a time in my life when I was a lot like Quentin. It was about 20 years ago. Present me is a lot closer to Julia.
How about one that you would love to be like?
Oh, my hero is Janet. Janet is my hero. She is comfortable with her own aggression in a way that I long to be. She doesn't pull punches, because why would you?
Life is short, right?
Yeah.
As they say. Well, in your own world, if you were assigned to a break Bill's discipline, which one would you be?
I think it would be something. It would be something like persnickety. I don't see myself standing on a mountaintop and calling down lightning. I'm more in the kind of minor mending world. I'm going to go with minor mending. Quentin and I could be in the same club there. Fiddling with something small, I think, is where my discipline would lie.
Well, a lot of times the details are what make it. So
that's what I bring to the table.
Well, if you could create a crossover between The Magicians and another show, do you have a thought on that?
Oh, and another show. It's between Adventure Time and Doctor Who. I think it's definitely Doctor Who. Okay, I've worked it out in my mind. Doctor Who. I would like to hear the Doctor straighten my characters out on a few things. You know, he always knows what's what, and he has a good way of putting it. I think my characters could benefit a lot from seeing the Doctor.
Yeah, I think the Doctor would blow their minds.
Yeah.
Well, we know that you watched the show, and you've had a chance to watch season 2. Was there one particular episode that was your favorite, and why?
It's between two. They have the magicians rob a bank in episode 7. I have a particular soft spot for heists, and I think that they did it well. That was a highlight for me. And there's another moment. I'm not going to be able to call out the episode number, but it's where Quentin and Penny, they go and find the questing beast, and they kind of try to get a good wish out of her, and they don't get what they want. Quentin finally says, "Look, just send me home," and he is in full sort of Felurian archer regalia, and the questing beast sends him to Manhattan, and he shows up, and he's given up hope, and he just takes his bow and his quiver of arrows, he just chucks them in the trash, walks away. That happens in the books too, and it's always been one of my favorite moments in the books, and it's one of those things that got sort of just right on screen.
Wonderful. Well, my favorite was definitely the bank heist and the K-pop inspired disco ball. That was definitely one of my favorites. Well, if you had a choice between one of these that you could be, would you be a magician, a magical creature, a god, or a Niffin?
Did you say God? Yeah, that one. That's what I would be. No question about that.
Would you be a naughty god?
I like to think that I would be a benevolent deity, but until you experience omnipotence, you really never know where it's going to take you.
Wonderful. Well, I know there's going to be a lot of our fans who are aspiring writers. From you personally, what would you feel like be the best advice you could give?
I like to remind people who are working on their own stuff that there's a lot of time. There are a lot of 20-something wunderkinds out there. I was not one of them. I didn't start writing The Magicians, write the first line of it, till I was 35. And it wasn't published. It was published when I was 40. That was the year I turned 40. And that was my first really successful book that did well, that I felt proud of, and like I'd said what I wanted to say. And I was 40 years old. So I just tell people, never give up. Never give up. If you want it, never give up. I wrote for 20 years before The Magicians came out. And it took me that long to drill down and strip all the junk away and find my voice. If you really want it, it's there for you. Just don't give up.
Well, we know about The Magicians, but what's your next big exciting project?
I've got a couple, couple unannounced ones, which I still can't announce. But the big one is a book about King Arthur. I was obsessed with the Once and Future King and Mallory when I was younger, and also am obsessed with them now. And I had an idea for how to do my own take on that story, and it's a big, ambitious project, which I'm about halfway through. That's the big one that's coming up. I don't think I'm going to get it out next year. It's probably 2019.
Well, sometimes, greatness takes time, right?
Yeah. Sometimes terribleness takes time too.
That takes some time too.
Either case, I'm taking a lot of time.
Okay. Sounds like a very personal project, though, something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us and sitting down during your busy schedule. I know that our fans are going to be really excited to see what you had to say today. Anything you want to leave us with? I'm
gonna go back to never give up. In case between when I said that and now you've given up, get back on that horse.
Don't give up. My name is Lev Grossman, and this is the Nerdeek Line.